Ernest Hemingway is known to have said the only kind of writing is rewriting, and many other authors have echoed this sentiment. While I understand the logical importance of the revision process, one part of it has always been a thorn in my side: rereading second, third, and later drafts of my novels. Because after the initial excitement of reading through my first draft, I've had trouble staying focused when reading through later ones. I've missed noting down plot holes, and I've sometimes only been left with vague ideas about what to fix. But I know this is not good enough, and I know I need to figure this problem out. So in this video, I'll be aiming to complete the most effective late draft read-through that I can. I want to take thorough notes and have a crystal clear idea of what I need to work on for the next draft. And I'll be attempting to complete this entire 343-page read-through in just 2 days. So I'm back to continue working through the revision process from plot and structure. And last week I was supposed to take a week off from looking at the story, just letting it sit after the first round of revision. And so I was able to do some fun stuff, for instance, world building like N.K. Jemisin. But now it's time to continue with the story. So I'm going to be working through the next step of the process from plot and structure. So moving on from step 5, which was write the second draft, to step 6, which is refine. So he says to set it aside for a week, which is what I did, and then come and read through it, and with a focus on tightening cutting scenes, deepening characters, and expanding and revising subplots. So that will be my focus in this phase of revision, and the first thing that I need to do is read through the story. However, it's quite long this time. It was already 322 pages last time, but because of writing draft 2, I must have added a little bit here and there, and it has ballooned up to 343 pages. So that's what I'm going to be working with, trying to read through this entire draft and focusing on these elements: plot, scenes, characters, theme, and making sure that I'm getting all of those really nailed down. My original goal was to finish the entire reread in just 1 day. However, I hadn't anticipated just how difficult that would be. As I started reading through the story, I noticed that my thoughts were bouncing all over the place to different things that I could do, things that might be a little bit more fun to do, basically anything but doing the rereading. So I'm running into a little bit of an unexpected problem here. And the problem is that I don't want to read this. I think I'm having resistance to reading the story, specifically because I'm setting such an enormous goal for myself with reading it, to read through the entire book in the single day, and I really don't want to spend my day like that. I spent minutes trying to think through it, but came up with nothing. I need to think through this a little bit more, I think, because I've been rambling for 7 minutes so far, and I haven't figured it out. But I'm going to take some time to journal. I'm going to try to figure out what these mental blocks are that are preventing me from wanting to do this, and figure out if I can remove some of those blocks. This is a little bit meta, but hopefully this will be helpful, because I'm sure that other people run into these problems as well. I journaled for a full page, working through my thoughts and trying to figure out this problem. So I feel like I figured it out. I'm thinking it stems from 2 things. One is just, being self-conscious of my current level of skill as a writer and seeing my flaws bare like this. And obviously that's a really good thing, because then I can actually learn from the problems that I'm having. But it is a little bit difficult, I think, because there are things that stick out to me and I'm like, it doesn't feel right yet. I don't like that. So that's one of the problems. And then the other problem is that I made the goal so intense and so overwhelming in scale that it's difficult to even look at. 343 pages, and I want to read through all of that in 1 day. Seeing all of that, it seems overwhelming. It's too much. It feels like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? So I have potential solutions. So the first solution is making the goal more spread out and smaller. Instead of 1 day, taking a few days, maybe 5 days to read through this entire draft and take all the notes on it. And I could work on another thing that I find more fun while I'm doing this. So I take a little bit of time each day to work through this hard thing, and then I also get to work on something more fun, like maybe a video about world building or a magic system, or maybe a video about creating characters. So that could be a potential solution, but I think what I'm going to try here for now to start with is the second solution, and that is breaking this entire thing down into Pomodoro blocks. I don't often use Pomodoros. Mostly when I do tasks, I like to just do the whole thing at once. Like when I edit videos, for instance, yesterday I was editing a long time. I spent the first 7 hours of the day editing, and I didn't get up from my chair except for to go to the bathroom. I like to just be in the zone and focus. But I think in this case, when it's a task that I don't really want to do, when I'm having trouble with resistance, just thinking about doing it, I think it might be more useful to break it down and to give myself a little bit of a reward or some sort of fun activity during my 5-minute breaks. So I think what I'm going to do, at least to start with, is I'm going to just start off reading through. I'm going to put Pomodoro timer on for 25 minutes. I'm going to start reading for 25 minutes, working through this. And then I'm going to take my 5-minute break and I'm going to either listen to more of The Way of Kings Prime, 5 minutes at a time, which is a little savage. Very long book for that, but okay. Or I'm going to watch this really long Yes Theory video that I wanted to watch, but every time I looked at it, I was like, dude, it's 50 minutes long. I don't have time to watch that. So I can watch 5 minutes at a time with that. So those are my ideas here. Let's get into it, baby. Hopefully this will be more fun. Let's focus for 25 minutes. Let's go. I have been making some good progress here so far. I have read the first 50 pages. I'm a little bit more than a seventh of the way through. The main things that I'm noticing are pretty small. A lot of them are related to character things, consistent enough character voices, making sure the things that I'm focusing on in the character's perspective are actually things that the character would focus on. Mostly character related, and then also just like some small things like the ends of scenes aren't strong enough to carry people over to the next one, stuff like that. My first concern of just like being insecure and like looking at all the flaws and stuff is not the main problem. The main problem is the scale of the work and how much I'm having to do, and that's kind of the intimidating thing, but just taking it one Pomodoro at a time. Overall, I do think this is going well. I do think this is looking good, and it's definitely looking better than it looked before. So I'm just going to continue working through this, taking some notes, figuring out as much as I can, and let's start that next Pomodoro. So I have managed to get to page 90 so far. So I've taken about a full page of notes. I think things are going well overall. The main thing I've noticed is that I tend to be too on the nose with expressing feelings, expressing too much through character thoughts. So I need to pay attention to that. But as far as like the main things I'm focusing on here with scenes, theme, plot, characters are by far the biggest focus. We'll have to see as I read more of this. Anyway, I've already gotten up to the 1/4 mark of the story here, so it's time for me to take a little bit of a break. Time for me to go and do a little bit of a run, and then eat some lunch, read Way of Kings Prime, and I'll be back to continue reading after that. So I'm on page 173 out of 343. So I have reached the halfway point, which is a good thing. However, it's already getting pretty late. It is already 4:30 p.m. So I'm not thinking that I'm going to be able to finish this today. Pomodoros are definitely helping, and I've been able to work really smoothly, consistently, and it's not been that bad. Often when I just continue reading for a long time on my own stuff, it gets difficult to focus. But with these short bursts of 25 minutes at a time, I find myself able to actually focus on the content. So this has been really useful to discover. With that said, I don't really have enough time to finish this today, so I'm gonna save the rest for tomorrow. However, I did make a ton of progress here today. I have another 3/4 of a page of notes, so it's looking good. So far, I would say it's mostly character related stuff. Characters being a little bit inconsistent here or there, characters' dialogue feeling a little bit off, not distinguishing well enough between the characters' voices and whatnot. In general, I would say the biggest problem I'm facing, even after the revisions I made in the last draft, is characters. Scenes are feeling pretty good so far. I mean, overall the scenes feel tight, maybe even to a fault, honestly, because sometimes I feel like I could use more description. And one more thing that I actually do have that stood out to me as a problem is plot holes. But because I've been able to maintain my focus so well using this Pomodoro reading technique, I have noted down all the plot holes that I've noticed so far, so I shouldn't have any problem going back and fixing those. So things are looking good, but I am gonna need another day, so I will be back tomorrow to continue working on this read through. I'd already missed the first goal of finishing the reread in one day, and now I wanted to be sure to finish the entire rest of the reading on day 2. So yesterday I left off at a little bit more than the halfway point. I should be able to finish this today with 5-6 rounds of Pomodoros. We'll see how many it takes. Reading that last scene just made me realize how important character voice is, especially in dialogue. Because in the last revision, I went back and worked on updating these two characters that are traveling with Pramana and making their voices more unique, giving them more personality. And because of that, the scenes are flowing so much better and they seem more natural. Just spending that time focusing on these characters' motivations, the types of people they are, and how they would act has really helped to create characters that feel so much more organic. I wanted to stop here and talk about that just because this aspect was something I changed in the last draft and it's so much better now. So I definitely want to take some time to do that for the other characters to make sure they are coming across as naturally and consistently as well. So I've managed to get to page 268. So I am making good progress here and I'm almost 80% of the way through. However, I am starting to feel a little bit tired. I'm having a little bit more trouble focusing now, even with the Pomodoros. So I don't know exactly what to do. It's too early for me to take a break really, because I don't usually start exercise for at least another hour and 30 minutes. So I think I'm just gonna keep going and hopefully I will be able to conjure up some sort of energy. I am getting to some fun parts of the story. So the story is pretty engaging, even though I've already read it multiple times. These parts are really cool. So hopefully that will help me just continue and be able to focus, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't starting to feel a little bit tired. Even while reading these climactic scenes, I was still having some trouble staying completely focused. But by limiting my focus to the elements of character, scenes, and plot holes, I was able to keep noting down the important things that I would need to fix. I have gotten to page 343. So I have just finished reading the entire story and it actually was better than I thought. Obviously there are big problems left. Let's talk about some of the main things that I want to focus on. So first of all, I do have quite a few notes. I have 3.66 pages or so. And the main thing that I noticed consistently sticking out was, of course, character concerns, particularly character voice and consistency. Making sure the characters feel consistent from one scene to the next, making sure their actions are in character and that their dialogue is fitting to their background and what voice you would expect from them. So that's something I definitely need to work on because often the characters' voices can kind of end up being my voice. Another major thing that stuck out to me, especially during the second day, was making sure the scenes are drawing out tension enough. There were more than a few scenes where I didn't really draw out tension enough, where the scenes felt pretty linear, just A to B, and really easy for the character. And I want to make sure that I'm actually presenting them with obstacles, drawing out the tension, and making the scenes interesting enough by putting those obstacles in the character's way. That's something I need to go through as well. I've taken out a bunch of notes on various scenes where I'm not doing that well. And then another thing that I need to work on are plot holes. There are quite a few. I think that I noticed all of them when I read through this time, but with 343 pages, I might not have noticed every single one. I did note down every single one that I did notice though, so I should be able to vastly reduce the number of plot holes as well. And one last major thing that stuck out to me is paying attention to narrative modes. I guess this falls under the scene category of things to change and things to perfect during this draft, but a lot of times I can end up using too much character thought and neglecting some of the other narrative modes that I really should be spending more time in. So I'm going to need to go through and make sure that I'm giving time to other narrative modes besides character thought. So that's another thing I want to focus on in this draft of revision. But I think the most important change and the most major change that I'm going to make is I'm going to go back for every single character and do some of the work that I did for the two supporting characters that are traveling along with Pramana, because the work that I did for them really made their characters feel more unique. They made their character voices stand out more and be more consistent. And I want to go through and do that for all of the characters, because if I can make all these characters feel consistent and have voices that make sense, then I think that will make the story feel so much better. So I'm very happy to have finished this read through and analysis, and now I'm ready to start writing the third draft of this book next. At the start of this rereading process, I felt a lot of resistance to doing it, to the point that I wanted to work on almost anything else instead. But by facing this problem head on and genuinely trying to figure it out, I found a method that helped me focus better, and learned that even when I was having trouble focusing, it was still possible to stay aware of a few major concerns and note those down. And because of this, I am better prepared to write this next draft and excited to see what the story looks like after this next round of revisions. And I'm curious, what is the hardest part of the writing process for you? And how do you overcome this difficulty to complete it anyway? Let me know in the comments below. And also, if you like this video, make sure to smash that like button so YouTube knows, share with other writers like you. And as always, keep on writing. I have potential solutions. I don't know. That smile was a little funky, probably.